Welcome to Sew with Monty. I want to show you how to take the basic sleeve block and turn it into a flutter sleeve. There's so many things you can do with this basic sleeve block. Once you have your armhole and your sleeve fitting nice and the balance is good, pretty much the sky's the limit from there on about how you design and what you do with your design. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to shorten the sleeve to the desired length, and I'm going to make mine 2 inches below the underarm point, which is the bicep level line, so that this will be a short flutter sleeve. So I take my ruler and I'm just going to draw a line right across through here, 2 inches below my bicep level line, making sure I stay parallel to my bicep level line. That ensures that my sleeve will be balanced and level, so that as I create the flutter, I won't have to worry about it being uneven at the bottom. There might be a little bit of adjustment due to the fabric going off grain in places, but overall the sleeve will be relatively balanced as we go forward. So we don't really need the bottom part of the sleeve. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take paper and we're going to tape it on here and square off the underarm. So let me do that and then I'll take you to the next step. So now I have my sleeve squared and trimmed to the length I want it to be. And I want to divide my sleeve into 7 lines. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here 1.5 inches from the edge, the underarm point, and I'm going to draw a line right here at the underarm point. I'm going to do both. Whatever I do to one side, I'm going to do to the other side the same. Now I want to take this section and divide it into 2 lines or 3 sections. So I'm going to take the measurement, which is almost 5. So I'm going to go 1 5/8 here, and I'm going to go 1 5/8 here, so that's right here, and that leaves me a space of 1 3/4, very close to what I need. Now I want to remind you that wherever you open this sleeve up, it's going to create your fullness, your flare, or your cone, as we call it. So you'll have cones in all these areas. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind is that your cones, I'm going to go 1 5/8 here and 1 5/8 here, and that leaves me 1 3/4 in between, which is very close. We're only off 1/8 of an inch in the middle. So now what I want to do is I'm going to divide this into, I've divided into 7, but I'm going to add different amounts in each section here because this is longer and these are shorter. So this front line, I'm going to add 2.5 inches because it's the longest. This line is going to be 1.75 at the opening down here and 1.75 here. I want this to be gradual so that one cone isn't bigger than the other. If I added 2.5 on all of these, the shorter cones would be much wider because they're shorter in distance. So think of it as a large triangle. If this one is longer and 2.5 is here, and this one's real short and 2.5 is here, that makes a lot more fullness at the underarm. So you want to graduate your fullness to equal what you want. Ultimately, I'd like to add 10 inches to this sleeve. It's 13 right now in the bottom opening, so I'm going to add 10 additional inches. So right here I'm going to do 1.25 because it's shorter as well. And then on these little guys over here, I'm only going to do 0.75 and 0.75 because I don't want them to be as full as this one is because they're so short. Now we're going to get a piece of paper, and the first thing I'm going to do is take this paper over here, and I'm going to draw a line in the center of it, leaving plenty of room on each side of the line to add my fullness. So you want to make sure you've added plenty of room, or leave plenty of room to add your fullness. So my line, and I'm going to draw it with the larger marker so you can see it. I'm going to try to balance it to my grid board. It's always nice if you have this grid board to utilize the lines on it while you're working. So this is going to be the center part. So as I open this up, I'm going to put 1 1/4 on each side of this line so that when I open it up, I know I'm even on both sides so I don't get my fullness lopsided. So I'm going to come over here and add 1 1/4 inches, and I'm going to come over here and add 1 1/4 inches. I'm also going to give myself a horizontal line to balance everything to so that I don't get my pattern lopsided. Now I suggest not to open all these lines at once, just open them one at a time. That way you'll get a better, more symmetrical sleeve. So the first one I'm going to open is the center one. And I'm going to open it leaving a little hinge at the top here, very little. And I want to put this hinge right on my grain line, and then I want to make it open up so that the two corners of this opening touch the horizontal line. Now this keeps me balanced. Instead of just doing this and winging it and not knowing whether or not I stay balanced, that could cause my sleeve to be lopsided, which in turn could cause my flare to be lopsided, too full in the front, too full in the back, so forth and so on. So once I have this done, now I can open these two. So it's anchored, everything's good. So from this point over, I'm going to leave a hinge again, I'm going to measure out 1.75. So I have at the very top, I've got 2.5. Now I'm going to measure over 1.75 right here. I'm going to tip it a little bit because my line, as you can see, if I open this up, is going to be a little bit higher than straight across. So if I go 1.75, see, that's where that actually touches. So I didn't have to draw a line after all. Just use my ruler. So I'm going to do the same on the other side, and I'm going to open all of these lines up. And then after we open them up and tape them down, we're going to blend them off. So I'll continue doing this, and then I'll show you the end result. So as you can see, I've opened my sleeve up, and the spacing between each line where I've opened it has gotten smaller as the line got shorter. It's fullest here, a little bit smaller, and the smallest here. So that each cone will be in proportion to the opening that it is at. The next thing I'm going to do is blend the edge off in a soft curve. The beauty of this is my sleeve cap hasn't changed one bit. It'll still fit in the armhole perfectly. So I don't have to do any adjustments here. Again, using the sleeve block is what benefits you the most here. So the next thing I'm going to do is just simply soften these edges out a little bit and use my vary curve. And I want to note kind of where I'm at. If I'm using the 7 here, I want to see if the 7 will fit in each space. See, I'm using the 7, and I'm kind of using that as my go-to for my curved area of my arm. So when I turn over here, I'm going to soften this out with the 7 here because it needs a little bit of arc. See, it's very subtle. But if I keep using the same number to do my balance with, my curve will be more symmetrical. So you want to pick a number, one of the numbers on your ruler, and use that as your guideline to do your balance. So the next step is very simple. We're going to cut the sleeve out, add a 1/2 inch seam allowance around it, and sew it into our muslin and take a look and see what we've got. So now we have our muslin sewn up, and as you can see, the cones are beautiful in our Flutter sleeve. Now, we've gotten this one finished, but I wanted to tell you that you can make this sleeve as full as you like. You really could do an absolute full circle on this by adding more lines and more fullness in each line if you chose to do so. It also is very beautiful to make a bell sleeve, a full-length bell sleeve all the way to the wrist, which too is very, very pretty. So this is an easy technique, and it turns out very beautiful as a sleeve. So let's take a look at the front and see how pretty it is from that view. So it's very beautiful from this view as well. And note how level the sleeve is. That's because we started off with a balanced short sleeve to begin with. So these little tricks help your finished look of your sleeve come out much easier and much more fun to do. So there you have it. That's the Flutter sleeve.